We're here to talk a little bit about modern marketing, and I have to say, we've done a couple of these shows. We've got a couple more releasing. We've done one on podcasts with Rick Unser. We've got one coming up on blogs and writing a book. And you have chosen the medium of video, and specifically YouTube. And tell me a little bit about Plan Design Consultants.
Plan Design Consultants is a third-party administration firm, so we do all the compliance and admin work for retirement plans, 403B, profit sharing, defined benefit, cash balance plans. We were founded in 1975 by my father, Paul Carlson. He's retired now, transitioned the company to me, so we're a second-generation family-owned business. Corporate headquarters in the Bay Area of California, and just over 20 employees.
And where are we recording today?
We are at my home in sunny Carlsbad, California, San Diego, if you will.
And it's so funny. I used to come to California all the time for work, and now I find it's like once a quarter or whatever. But as I was driving through the snowstorm to the airport this morning, when I landed here, I called my wife and I said, geez, I forgot how wonderful the weather is here.
I know. I feel guilty. My big joke that I make is that my thermometer in my car is broken because it always says it's 73 degrees. So I don't, that's my big.
It is just really pleasant today.
I have no complaints. It's a great place to live.
Now, I do want to get into the business and then the topic at hand here. But before we do that, you have a pretty interesting story. So just tell me your story a little bit about how you came to be at Plan Design Consultants.
Yeah, so the classic story is, how do you go from being a professional surfer to a third-party administrator? And when I defined myself as a professional surfer, I want to be very clear, it was a very unsuccessful professional surfing career. I was always at the very bottom of the rankings and struggling to get through heats. But yes, I was a professional surfer. As I mentioned, my father started the company in the mid-'70s. And geez, when I was 15, he would talk to me about taking over the family business. And when I was 20, he would talk to me about taking over the family business. And I was like, you gotta be crazy. Imagine me, the blonde surfer. I'm not putting on a suit and tie and doing 401k plans. You gotta be nuts. Well, I'm 25 and I'm 30, and then I start to have my first kid, and I've got 2 kids, and I actually owned a surf shop down here in San Diego. And so the best way I could put it is, I feel like my bills started to exceed my revenue a little bit, and I went into it for all the wrong reasons. I called my dad because I needed money. I needed a better, financially supportive career. So all the wrong reasons, as I put. I get into it. I love it. I trained underneath him. He taught me everything, A to Z. I shadowed him. He was my guru. We had a great father-son business relationship, which I know doesn't always happen, which is rare, and said, I'm going to teach you how I do it, but then you're going to figure out how to do it better. So kudos to him. He's a great father and was a great businessman. But yeah, so I went into it for all the wrong reasons, but I absolutely love it now. I love being an entrepreneur. I love trying to push to new levels and sales and branding and marketing. I just love everything about running a business.
And so your friends from your surfing days, when you told them you were going to go into finance, what was that conversation like?
This might sound weird to our financial services audience, but I tell my wife this. If I pulled up to a surf spot from my youth in a nice, expensive car, wearing a nice, expensive suit and exuded success, my old friends would look at me and go, what happened to that guy? That poor guy, what happened to him? His life went down the wrong path.
And what are the similarities that you found in working in retirement services and action sports?
Not a lot at first, because you have to understand, when I first came into it, financial services was very, very button up, and so I had to learn to dot my I's and cross my T's and be very, responsible and professional and all that kind of stuff. Where action sports, you show up to the offices of your sponsor and there's a skateboard ramp in the office, and it's okay for everyone to take off for the afternoon and surf, or you might find a beer, at the CFO's desk, So it's a very different environment. So I don't think I took a lot of action sports into financial services to start. I think I learned financial services, and I got as good as I could be in that space. And then it was later in my career where I started to try to be more myself and started to bring back my old ways into my financial services, which you'll see now in a lot of our branding and marketing. So I did it later where I brought it in.
You have chosen the medium of video and specifically YouTube. And so I want to talk a lot about just how the idea came about, because to your point, it seems like you took a lot of the creativity you had in your previous career and brought that into the world of finance. But tell me a little bit about like the moment when you thought up this idea.
Yeah, kind of the genesis of it all. Well, we had been doing normal types of marketing, like any financial services company.
People in white linen on the
seminars, webinars, that type of stuff, right? Lunch and learns at the steakhouse, all that type of jazz. And webinars were ending to be a big part of it too. And I just felt like we needed to do something more. And I really thought that video seemed like something I'd seen out there and it was a great medium, okay? I wasn't sure how we were going to do it, but I was always kicking it around in the back of my head. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I have a sales team. And back in the day, at the end of the week, I would spend time with my sales team, say in our conference room. And yeah, we might have opened a cold beer, but we would talk about the week before. We would talk about a prospect. We'd talk about an advisor we were working with. We'd talk about new tools from a record keeper that had come out. And we'd have these great conversations. Sometimes we'd debate. Sometimes we'd argue. Sometimes we'd jump up on the whiteboard to prove our point. And it was just this great, unscripted, very authentic conversations we were having. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, if an advisor or a client, a plan sponsor, was a fly on the wall to this, they would eat this up. They would love this. Not only would they learn from it, they would see how passionate we were. They would see that we knew our stuff, that we were experts in our field. And that's when I was like, we need to put this on video. That was the genesis.
And so you decide you're going to put this on video, and obviously that is the right medium for a group, kind of this dialogue like that. How did Retireholics, the brand name, get born?
Yeah, okay. So now we're going to put it on video. Now we got to decide how. What are we going to do? And there was moments where the financial services guy inside of me envisioned myself and my sales director in suits and ties at a conference room table. And then there was the other part of me that was like, no, we could do something better. We could do something different that would really catch people's attention. So I actually cheated. I actually stole the concept a little bit from a show that I used to watch up in the Silicon Valley that was called Dignation. Non-financial services. It had to do with the tech space. And it was two guys on a couch drinking beer. They'd talk a bit of pop culture, but then they'd really dive into kind of the Silicon Valley tech world. And I found myself fascinated with that show. I'd want to open a beer to watch it with them and listen to it. And so that was kind of the template that I stole from them. We'll sit on a couch, we'll have some beers, we'll keep it a relaxed environment, and we'll talk 401k stuff. So that was it.
And so you come up with this idea and you decide we're going to go out and do this and we're going to put it out. What audience did you think you were going to try to reach?
So remember, in my mind, I'm almost replacing webinars. So I was doing webinars and live events. And 15 people, 30 people, 40 people would show up, depending, for each of those types of meetings.
And they're expensive.
The webinars are not, right? They're very easy to throw up. But the live events is for sure expensive. So this is, to me, is a replacement for that. So you asked me about my intended audience. I'm thinking it's the same people. It's the same people that would come to my steak lunch or log into my webinar. I'm just going to catch them with video. And how great will this be? Because it'll be recorded. They can watch it at their convenience, on demand. It'll live forever. So when I thought audience, I thought my same audience that had been doing these other things for.
Mm-hmm. And did you feel like there were a lot of advisors that were on YouTube that you could reach that you weren't already talking to? Or was this really about people you were already prospecting and working with?
Yeah, I feel like it was the same target list, if you will. And I don't think I was looking at new people that were on YouTube. To be totally honest with you, and I still feel this way today, YouTube is a great platform and it's a great tech, and we definitely use it. And we have a YouTube channel, and the way YouTube holds our videos and allows us to to share it within other socials like LinkedIn and what have you is really, really cool. So I love YouTube, but I wasn't really thinking YouTube. I was thinking video. Because I was thinking, well, this is going to be video within LinkedIn. This is going to be video when I send an email blast out.
Really
to my
omni-channel.
list. Yeah, just video. This is video. But don't get me wrong. YouTube is a great channel for it. But no, I wasn't thinking, oh, there's a ton of advisors hanging out on YouTube and I'm going to go find them. It was more, I'm going to get my video in the hands of advisors through a multitude of platforms.
In the easiest way possible. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the branding before we go into kind of the operational nature of the show. And you guys have purposely chose a little bit of an irreverent branding.
Yeah.
We touched on kind of your original idea. But in the world of financial services, it's certainly, I think, got to stand out or has made you stand out. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned you had the show, Dignation. You were going to try to replicate some of the concepts from that. Tell me a little bit about the first time you tried this.
Okay, well, two things. First of all, let me first tell you, the first time we tried it, I think we fell flat on our face. And I'm going to say to your audience that I do think it's important to just get her done and dive in and kind of get the ball rolling and get it started. And we definitely did that. By the way, fun fact, if you try to find Retireholics episode 1, it's very difficult to find.
Is that purposeful?
It's purposeful. It's out on the dark web. You got to search to find it. It's out there, but you can find 2, 3, and 4 because we started to figure out what we were doing. But yeah, it was a bit of a failure.
Maybe we'll link to that in the show.
You can find it. You could.
But the last episode and then the first episode.
It's pretty embarrassing. But on a positive sense, yeah, we were getting it started. We were getting it kickstarted. We were starting to feel it out, how to do it. We learned a lot from that first episode. But you had also asked about the irreverence or, kind of challenging the status quo of what financial services is. And yes, some of that comes from my surf background because that's how surf marketing is, right? But also a lot of it comes from that same conference room that I told you where I'm with Chad and Mark and Justin, my sales team. And I'm saying, these are fun guys. They're laughing. They enjoy what they're doing. Maybe he is drinking a beer. Maybe he makes a joke. Maybe Chad makes a joke about Justin, and we all laugh while we're talking about cross-testing. And so it was really just trying to take that and put it into video. It wasn't that I was trying to shake up the industry. I just felt like, oh, no, people will like this realism. They'll like this kind of unfiltered look at what's going on.
Now, was there anyone on your executive team that said, this is a really terrible idea?
Yeah, well, Chad, who's our sales director, and he's the nerd of the Retireholics on the couch, he is always the one pulling back the reins on what we're going to do because he's very professional. Mind you, we sit on this couch and we drink beer and we talk about defined contribution, but these guys wear suit and ties Monday through Friday and call on advisors, and they're professional guys. But yeah, Chad's always going, I don't know, should we do that? Should we not do that? And we usually just roll right over him and say, no, we're going to do it. We're going to push it.
And have you ever had the discussion with your team about, does this help attract the right type of advisors or does it attract the wrong? Like, have you ever had that discussion now that you're a couple years into it?
Yeah, a little bit. I get it more with outsiders. A lot of people come up to me at different conferences and things and say, oh, I get it. You're going after the young advisors, or, you're going after millennials, or, and I actually take offense to that a little bit because I'm like, no, that's actually not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get out to all advisors. And you'd be shocked to find out that a lot of the positive engagement that I get are from people in their 50s and 60s and industry veterans. You'll see throughout 2018, we have a few that will be guests on our show. So no, I'm not going after the young, edgy people. I'm going after everybody because I got news for you, Ben. Most people are fun people. Most people do like a rock band. They do have a hobby and a sport. And even though they put on that suit and tie on Monday, they're still normal people that have fun. And so if they like 401k and they're interested in it, I think they're going to like having some fun while they do it.
It's so funny you say that because I've really resisted the urge in this business to golf. It's like, counterintuitive to my entire upbringing and, of action sports. And so every year I think I get invited to a handful of golf events. And I golfed, a little bit before, I went into the workforce. But I've really resisted. I think I've maybe been to one golf tournament because I feel like that's everyone's stereotypical
for sure.
view
Number
of a
one.
financial advisor.
Yep.
You know, they golf and they talk about, you know, financial markets and jargon that no one understands. So I want to talk a little bit more about the branding. So you decided it was kind of the right approach for your firm. It certainly stands out. And I think actually the first time, I'll just share this with you, the first time I ever saw something from you was, I believe, a picture of you that looked like a mugshot.
Yeah.
And this has got to be pretty, you know, relevant to many people who've looked you up for the first time. It stands out and you go, well, what's this guy's story?
Yeah.
And so has that been evolved over time, or was that intentional from the start?
So I'm going to keep reiterating something, and I hope it doesn't annoy people, but having fun is definitely part of my recipe. So when given the choice between doing something that's normal and status quo and having a little bit of fun, I'm usually going to choose the latter. The LinkedIn picture that you're talking about, actually it was less my doing and more of our graphic design department, AKA my brother, who was actually looking at LinkedIn photos for me and the rest of my team and trying to find different backgrounds. He was really just screwing around with the mugshot one and sent it to me to use on social as more of a post of content, to have some fun, write a little blurb to it.
And I think the original post was more about the new fiduciary regs, right?
Something.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I'm going to throw this on my LinkedIn for a little while. So I threw it on my LinkedIn, and oh my gosh, I mean, I got so many direct messages. I've had articles written about it, about that profile by other people. So I feel like I can't take it down now because so many people talk about it. Because I'd love to change it up once in a while, but that's one I've left alone because I've gotten so much feedback from it.
It's stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly has made you stand out, and I think, you know, it's got to, at least when you're at conferences, you're pretty recognizable now, probably a lot due to that photo. No?
A lot due to that, a lot due to the content I try to push out. I'm very committed to putting out valuable content to advisors, and then, you know, the show as well. I do want to add, if I can, though, the irreverence and kind of pushing the envelope. I want you to know that, as I mentioned, you know, we're a company going into their 5th decade of business, so we've got a team of professionals and people that really know what they're doing. And I think because of that history and because of that reputation, it allowed me to have a little more fun. Had I been a new firm or just starting out, I might have been a little less courageous to do something quite that gnarly. But because we had the history, it gives me a little more room to play.
And you've been doing this for a long time yourself as well at this point. It's not like you just all of a sudden took over the business and changed directions. Right?
I think that would have been a mistake. I think it needed to happen at the right time. So.
Yeah, more organically. So walk me back. You're back at your first episode. You've recorded your first episode. Did you show it to folks at the office first, or did you just hit post?
No, we put it out on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure we blasted a link of it to everyone within our email list. And just send it out there.
And so what was the initial reaction like from clients or prospects?
To be honest with you, I think it was fairly quiet in the sense that I remember like looking at it and thinking that 100 people had viewed it, and like that was like some big deal. Remember, I'm comparing it to seminars and webinars. So it was very quiet off the beginning. And so if I could give anything to the audience, those are things that you have to stick with, right? It's a building, it's a snowball type of process. And you just focus on the next episode, get it done, focus on the next one, and you build your audience through repetition. So it was slow off the start.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. Rick talked about this a little bit when we had him on the show, where, you know, you put it out there and then it's just crickets. And so you had these like grandiose visions that, you know, the whole world was going to come knocking down your door, and then you realize, wow, this is just the first step as we climb the mountain, to use
I think
his
we
terms.
had the same experience as Rick. Yeah.
Now, you guys since then have really incorporated adult beverages as kind of a key part of the show.
Yeah.
And even I think your logo now is kind of a, you know, a fun, you know, jest on a large company's logo.
Yeah.
And so, to use some food lingo, it's kind of become like 401k beer fusion
Yeah,
a little bit. There's some educational stuff
definitely.
about beer and 401ks. How have you found that lightens the mood with your audience?
Yeah, well, it's by design. I would say the beer is definitely by design. One, we wanted the format of the show to be a relaxed one. And I don't just mean the guys on the couch being relaxed, although that's a great byproduct of the beer. But we wanted the audience to feel that it was a relaxed environment they were watching. So the beer does a good job of doing that. Two, I think it was important to add a non-401k element to the show. Just to give people watching something a little different, a little bit of variety. So every show we have what's called the beer of the episode, which is nothing more than us introducing a new beer that was recommended from our audience and tasting it and drinking it throughout the show and letting people know how we feel about the beer and the quality of it, the taste of it, where it comes from, the story behind the brewery, et cetera, et cetera. But we do that for every show. And like I said, it's to relax the whole vibe. And it's also to add an outside element that's non-401k and lets people connect with it.
And have you ever had any of these brewers or microbrewers contact you and say, hey, well, we got a different one we'd like you to feature?
We have for sure. And we've actually filmed shows on location at some of the breweries before.
Very cool.
We're actually going to Portland in a few weeks, and we'll be filming a show.
The microbrew capital of the world,
We'll
right?
be filming a show at a brewery in Portland. We'll be interviewing Oregon Saves, the state-run plant or whatever. So, yes, the breweries are part of it. The beer's definitely part of it. We've had beer companies' representatives on stage with us on the couch on some of the episodes as well. So
very cool. So I want to get back to now the execution. We've talked a little bit about the idea, but you get this idea, you decided, boy, it would be really nice if this was a video we could just blast out to our clients and prospects. Tell me, how did you take this to execution? How did you think through compliance and all of the other aspects that I'm sure many people in our audience are saying, yeah, that's great, but.
Yeah, and I probably won't have a great answer for the advisors in the audience on that because as a TPA, I don't have to deal with compliance, right? So I don't have to send my videos through compliance or anything like that. So I didn't have to worry about that. I will tell you that, and I think I touched on this earlier, I really did just dive in to it. I didn't sit and measure 3 times before cutting. I said, let's just dive into it and get it done and then work through it that way. And I think that is great advice.
The school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah, you just get in there and do it. You're going to learn a lot more than sitting there, twiddling your thumbs trying to figure out what your strategy is going to be. I see a lot of that in marketing, especially with the advisors that we partner with. Everyone wants to talk about great ideas and strategies and things that they're going to do, but never come to fruition. And so I would challenge them just to dive in and get it done to start, and then you'll figure it out. However, for the advisor audience, I think a video is no different than a podcast in terms of compliance. And you mentioned Rick Unser earlier, and there's tons of podcasts out there these days. You can still do these types of things and send them through compliance. Compliance is there to make sure that you're not making false promises and that you're not doing some things that are so off the company's image that it would be bad for them. And so I don't think that compliance stops you from doing what you're doing. Even our show, as sophomoric as it may seem, the reality is that if you watch our episodes, I think they'd go through compliance. Like, we're talking about real subject matter. We're talking about real 401k issues and technical terms, and there's nothing in there that I don't think compliance would approve. But.
Yeah, I've been relatively. I found we worked with our compliance department who had initial reservations about the idea, and then after 1 or 2 run through the process and kind of working out some of the kinks, now it just kind of moves through like any other piece of marketing material.
I definitely think it's doable. Obviously, with compliance, you're going to have to set a little more of that architecture and that planning, but why not? And I would also argue that times are changing too. Mm-hmm. And I think compliance, broker-dealers, financial services industry as a whole is going to have to accept social media and these types of marketing. So it's going to get a little different.
Okay, so we're doing our execution of episode 1, and then you carry this forward. You're 3 years later. What are some of the big hurdles you've encountered along the way, or big issues? Maybe I should be asking Brandon.
Yeah, right. Brandon being our editor, yeah, I don't think it's fair for me to answer that question a lot of times because I do think a lot of the hard work in video, at least, happens in the editing room. And he spends countless hours, editing and snipping and putting things together and working with the audio and the overlays and all that kind of stuff. So I think that has been a learning curve. The cool thing about it is, you talked about episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, he gets better. So Brandon continues to get better and better at what he's doing. Our equipment tends to get more and more and better and better. So we continue to improve. And I also think that that's fun for our audience as well. I mean, if I'm watching some type of show, I want to tune in and see that, this is getting better. And each time I come back, things are improving. The guys on the couch, the cast, they're getting better. They're getting more comfortable. So have there been things we need to overcome? Absolutely. Our nervousness, bringing good content to the shows, our video quality, our audio quality, those are all things that we've had to confront, deal with, try to improve and make them better, and keep, moving forward.
And I'm curious, like when you, kind of jumping back to the genesis of the idea just a little bit here, but when you kind of came up with this idea, did you have a way that you were going to define it as successful? In other words, like, you get a year into this, were you going to kill it if you didn't hit X or if it didn't do Y?
So here I go again back to the analogy of, I was doing webinars, I was doing seminars. So what was my scoreboard there? Well, my scoreboard for this was going to be the same thing, right? It was literally trying to replace those things and or supplement them. So my scoreboard is new sales, right? Are we selling more plans? Are we getting more business? Is our network of advisors growing? And so that was a scoreboard. I did not go into this going, I want 100 views or 5,000 views or 10,000 views or, we're going to dominate the YouTube market. I had none of those types of things. I was just focusing on the task at hand and getting better, those classic cliches, just being in the moment, working hard at it and letting the results kind of come.
Between the time when you had the idea and the time you recorded episode 1, how long was that?
Yeah, very quick. Okay, so I'm smart enough to know that when we were having the brainstorming meeting and we decided on the name, which we did at that time, and the general concept based on the Dignation show, I literally put it on the calendar at that point. I think it was 2 weeks out. And I said, in 2 weeks, Friday night, we're meeting here. I think it was like 8 o'clock at night at our office, after everything had left and everything had settled down, we were going to film the first episode. And that's what we stuck to. And we just, again, sorry to keep saying, be a broken record, but we just dove right in to do it.
I love it. How do you think up the topics and the guests and how is the format of the show evolved?
So the format of the show has evolved, but in the beginning, we basically started with a beer of the episodes. We'd showcase a beer. And then we'd dive into some subject matter that we had predetermined. I'd send out an email to the entire cast saying, hey, these are the 2 or 3 things that we're going to discuss on the show. And I'd give them study materials. I'd send them to links and articles and different things for them to prep for the show. And as I'm talking about that, I can't help but share this with you. It's a great training tool. So here's my sales team of 3 guys that has to do a lot of homework before these shows to make sure that they can speak intelligently about the subject matter. It's awesome training for them because if you're going to get on camera and talk about a subject, you're going to have to get very confident in that subject matter, which just bodes well for them when they're meeting with advisors and this and that. So the agenda is, it's really cool. Outcome. So I send out the subject matter, they study up. We don't dress rehearse it. We like to have it just be organic and just happen as it happens. But we know the basic map of the spots we're going to hit, beginning, middle, and end of the show.
And so I got to ask this question. How much editing and cutting goes into the show?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. Sometimes shows aren't so great. And the entire show hits the editing room floor. So we have finished shows. And here's the horrible, disgusting thing that comes with it. You kind of know when you're done with it. When you finish the show live and you go, ugh, I don't think that was very good. And then our editor will let us know down the line, that was crap. And so you'll never see that episode of Retireholics. Other times, our editor does magic. And if we head down a rabbit hole with a certain subject and the show goes too long or there was no value in that, video's neat in that way because he can just take it out and, flip. He does all kinds of things. So, yeah. So editing really, really helps with video. It's a great part of getting rid of the bad stuff.
So now you've got the idea, it's rolling, and it's working for your firm. How much time do you dedicate each week to kind of recording, producing, managing the show itself?
So here we go again. We have to pay homage to Brandon, the editor, because he's putting in lots of late nights of editing the video and putting the audio together. But as a team, those emails are going out. We're studying. By the way, the Retireholics the cast is some are in Southern California and some are in Northern California. So we literally fly to a mutual point to film these things, whether it's at our corporate office or whether it's at an industry event. So there's a fair...
Recently at your house?
Recently, we've done some at my house.
Yeah.
We'll touch on this, but we've done some in Chicago, and we're going to Portland and Las Vegas. We've done shows. So lots of time, I guess, is the answer to the question. Lots of time and energy has gone into it. But you know what? It's part of the job, to be honest with you. I mean, it's the same as planning a seminar or planning a webinar or whatever you're doing. It's part of the job. It's part of our marketing strategy. So, it's not that it's distracting us from our day-to-day. It literally is part of the gig. I will tell you this. We have been invited to several conferences now. So national conferences want the Retireholics, believe it or not, to come and present on stage. And I have had to say no to some because I can't just drag my sales team all across the country throughout the year. They do have a day job that they have to do. So we do have to kind of look at those metrics and pick and choose where we're going to take everyone all the time.
Have you ever had a chance, because I know I've talked to a couple of other guests on the show where we've talked a little bit about, projects like this are slow burn. They take a long time to get up and running before they hit the J curve. Yeah. You're 16, 18 months into content before you really start to see it start to pay off. Has there ever been a time where your enthusiasm for the project has waned a little bit, and has it ever been difficult, or how did you overcome that?
To be 100% honest with you, no. It's so much fun, and it's not just me. That's true of the guys. They really get up for the day of filming. It's a lot of fun. We haven't talked about that. It's great company culture for us. We get to get together, talk shop, spend some time together that we normally wouldn't do. So no, it's a lot of fun. Everyone's excited to do it. I wouldn't say it's ever been a chore. And I mentioned the conferences. It's so fun to go to Vegas with your sales team and perform the show on stage. Or, we went to Chicago for the PSCA 70th annual conference and performed on the stage. That's not a chore. That's a ton of fun, So.
Wonderful. I got to ask this because I know there's a lot of advisors out there that are saying, well, yeah, but they've got a budget and they got an editor and they got, this is part of their marketing strategy. They're a real company. I'm a one-man show, or I'm a two or three-man small RIA. What kind of budget is really required to get going?
So our first show, the budget was we needed to buy the beer. We borrowed a camera from Chad's wife. And we did grab some lighting stuff. We spent a couple $100 on lighting. And we had a GoPro camera there that Justin already had. So look at there. Now, again, remember, episode 1 wasn't all that great.
Yeah.
But
what was it, episode 2?
The entry cost wasn't a whole lot, is my point. And yes, I'm not going to lie to you. As we've moved on, you're here. You can see it. There's lots of equipment. There's lots of cameras. There's lots of stuff going on, and lighting and mics and boom mics and things. So, but we've gradually added those as we've seen success and kind of gone on with it all.
So you can start with a fairly modest budget.
Yeah. So can I give you an example?
Yeah.
I see advisors out there today that are literally just filming themselves kind of in selfie mode with the video, their phone or what have you, and putting out little short content clips on LinkedIn and whatnot that I think are phenomenal. And the cost there is zero, in terms of actual money. There's some great stuff out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's one thing that we had Tim Reed on the show, and he walks a lot of people through an exercise when they're concerned about their ability to generate content. And he says, just write down the 10 questions you get asked most
I like
often,
that. Yeah.
turn your phone around and answer them.
Yeah, answer them.
And, it's actually some really good advice to just dive in and get going.
And like Retireholics episode 1, you might totally suck at it to start, but get through that one, and then you'll get a little bit better. You get a little bit better. But I think the barrier of entry in terms of cost doesn't have to be anything at all with video these days. We're lucky to live in that age.
Right. Did you guys immediately say we need to have a website, we need to have other ways to tie this in? You already had obviously a business website.
Yeah, so we didn't immediately. So I think the Retireholics website itself didn't come around till like the 3rd or 4th episode. It was in our head, like we had envisioned it.
And you were able to get the URL.
Oh yeah. We got both of them, like with a K and with a C. It's actually Retireholics with a K.
401k,
in parentheses. But yeah, we got the URLs. That wasn't hard. But no, so we just slowly built those things on. But you're talking about channels. So the website's key because it's great. We have social media, believe it or not. So Retireholics has an Instagram, and Retireholics has a LinkedIn, and Retireholics has a Twitter account. And that's fun, by the way. I wasn't even intending to talk to you about that, but it's really fun to have a social media with Retireholics because you can really play with that, right? It's not the Plan Design Consultants one, it's Retireholics. So you get to kind of put on the Retireholics mask and have some fun with your social media content, and the advisors get a kick out of it. But the channels, I think the email delivery is huge, by the way. I think blasting to my network of advisors and letting them know that a new episode is out is massive. I don't think I can just put it on YouTube and they're all going to go find it. I think LinkedIn in the financial services world is paramount. Like when I put a video out on LinkedIn, I get so much engagement, so many comments, so many direct messages. And these days they can play it right there in their LinkedIn scroll. It's right there. So. Yeah. And then, I use Facebook to promote it. I use Twitter to promote it. I have a blog at 401k.com is my blog, FOUR01k.com. And so I'll write a blog piece about the episode, and that'll get several hundred reads, and then hopefully. So it's all about trying to promote it on all those channels.
I think it's a really good point, though, for advisors that are out there that think they're going to record a video or a podcast or write a blog or whatever. Whatever you choose when it comes to content marketing, you have to market the marketing.
That's right.
You have to direct people to where they can consume that content because there's just too much noise out there for them to find it on their own. When it comes to marketing, and maybe we can just kind of shift into this, the impacts that this has had on your business. Even though this is great content, it's really valuable, ultimately it has to benefit your business.
Right.
Along with the industry and other things that have come out of that. But how long were you doing Retireholics before you knew it was working?
And it's hard to, what's the barometer? Because you start off and you do 3 episodes, 4 episodes, and then you go to a meeting and an advisor says they watched one and they give you positive feedback and you feel like, oh, well, that's a success, right? But it does, what did you say, kind of the J curve or whatever? Yeah. It does happen to where you start to hit a certain point. I can't tell you exactly when that was, but I would argue maybe more like 18 months in, where if you looked at my inbox these days, I get multiple messages every day about nothing more than the Retireholics show and my social media, people wanting to get to know me, people thanking me, people saying, oh, this is so cool. And so once you start getting those every day, and phone calls from people that want to talk to you, and right. Then you're on to something.
Tell me a little bit about the impact the podcast has had on Plan Design Consultants.
Yeah, so this to me is the tricky part, and I'm probably learning right now, okay? How about I go to a conference, people tell me how much they love Retireholics, but they don't even know Plan Design Consultants exists. I've had that happen on countless occasions. And I've taken the concept that I didn't want to shove Plan Design Consultants down the viewer's throats. I didn't want it to be this kind of sponsored branding type of thing. So we've kind of let Plan Design stay in the shadows. Obviously, if you watch a show, you can put 2 and 2 together and figure it out. But we haven't really been promoting it. And I'd like to say it's all by design. I don't really know. I know where I started. I don't really know where I'm finishing. But I feel like eventually plan design will start to kind of come into the picture a little more with the show. We'll see. But right now they're almost kind of two different entities, but they Venn diagram all the time. So that's a tough question for me to answer. And they can Venn diagram in a positive and a negative. On a positive, my sales guys can go to meetings with advisors. It's a cold call. They're walking in to meet the person for the first time. And the first words out of the advisor's mouth are, "You're the guy from the Retireholics." That's a great icebreaker. And they usually end up having a great relationship like that. On the other hand, we've had competitors that have tried to tell prospects, "Have you seen this crazy video these guys are doing? You don't want to hire them," you know? And so, yeah, the last thing I want is for a plan sponsor or an advisor to look at it. I used the word sophomoric before and kind of label us, because I think when you watch it, you'll come away going, no. I know there's beer drinking. I know there's some fun and there's some hijinks and stuff. But these are 4 guys that love what they do, know everything there is to know about 401k, and are super passionate about delivering this value to advisors to help them improve their business. We put advisors before anything else. And so I think once they see that, people's kind of impression of the show changes quite a bit. But
Have you felt like any of the impact has helped either with brand credibility more, or has there actually been lead generation?
I'll give you this, which is really neat, and this has happened on multiple occasions. In the past, we would go around and knock on doors for financial advisors to meet them and tell them about our company. And they would interview us in a sense. Well, tell me about your history. Tell me about the quality of your work. Tell me about your staff. Tell me about your bandwidth. Tell me about your fees. You know, basically grilling you to see whether they want to think about working with you. Now, because of the show, people call us and email us and go, "How do I work with you? I want to work with you guys." Without all they want to know, how can they work with us?
It speeds up the procurement process.
You know why? And this is a great thing about video. Video, when you do it in an authentic way, when you put yourself out there and act yourself and be yourself and provide value and talk about something, people get to know you. And then that breaks down all kinds of barriers. And that's a good thing. That's not a sales tactic. That's just a good thing to use something like that, like video, to connect with people in a way that you couldn't otherwise connect with them, and have that work for business is awesome.
We talked about your LinkedIn photo and some of these things, you know, people kind of could use the term, "Oh, well, these guys are just sophomoric," or they're making jest of
it's
a
okay,
very
it's
serious,
my term, you can use it. So
very serious business we're
right.
in. But then when you watch the show, I mean, you guys are talking details, the nitty-gritties of
and by the way, getting some, and
that
again,
credibility is almost gained by exposure.
Let's talk credibility, and I don't want to sound lame, because it is just a show where we're having some fun and drinking some beer and talking 401k. So I'm not trying to be all, "Oh yeah, check out our credibility." But to be invited to present on stage in Chicago at the PSCA 70th annual conference, that's about as buttoned up and historic, you know, organization as you can get. And they embraced us. We got on their stage. They laughed. They loved it. They learned. They came up. If we can make it there, you know, we can make it anywhere, because that's about as buttoned up and strict, responsible as you get.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, here's the thing. Here's how I'm going to talk about it. The jail, you know, background picture, the sophomoric branding. Okay, I'm dancing on a line there, but it gets your attention, and it gets you to remember us and me and what we're doing, and it gets a lot of people to inquire and to talk about it. And then if then I've got you, and if I can back it up with real value, real expertise, you know, real services, that's a winning solution. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, because it is authentic to me. It's who we are. But it's a good 1-2 punch. Like, I think it works really well.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your most memorable moments from the show?
Yeah, well, I already blew it with that question, because I would have to say, if I'm honest with you, going and performing on stage in Chicago was really cool. Then it's actually opened up a new channel for us that we haven't talked about today. I think the show on stage live is its own thing. And there's a lot of different ways that we can approach it with that are really intriguing to me. And so we are booked to go back to Vegas and perform in Vegas for the Excel 401k conference. We're going to go up to Portland here to do 2 different shows. And so those types of things to me are fun, and my most memorable experience is to go with the guys, travel, stay in a hotel, and perform a show for a live audience. That's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting to me because a lot of those conferences around the country are sponsored by media organizations.
Sure.
That certainly are interested in promoting their own media empires. Have you ever had any conflicts related to that?
Actually, the media themselves have embraced us. So
they don't view you as competition?
No, they haven't viewed us as competition. They've actually helped us. So we've had them on our show at times. They've written articles about us in their publications. I'm also, this is good for the audience, and it's genuine, but I'm always trying to cross-promote too. So through my social medias, if I see those media people writing something of value, I'm sharing it. So I develop relationships before.
Yeah, you've certainly, I've had the opportunity to, be connected with you and just watch some of the stuff you do on LinkedIn over the course of the last year or so. And you really digitally create relationships.
Yeah, I love that medium because I feel like that it actually has financial advisors' attention, and I think it's so, again, fun. It is fun for me to give them a variety of content and different things that they can learn from and make them smile or make them laugh, or they need that in the middle of their day.
Yeah.
So if I can give them great 401k content and throw a little chuckle in there or kind of an aha moment, I'm always looking for that opportunity.
Now, maybe you could share for our audience, what are kind of maybe 2 or 3 of the most actionable ideas from the show that you think our audience or sponsors should put to work?
Yeah, well, you've probably heard it ad nauseum, but I firmly believe in get her done as one actionable item. Like, don't sit and plan and wait. Like, just dive in. Get something moving in the right direction. I think that's very, very important. Second, and I hate to sound cliche, but be yourself, because that's a key element to putting something out there that's going to be successful and valuable to your audience. Be yourself. You don't, for a lot of people out there, it may not be beer and growing a beard and growing your hair long and going, that's not you. So you got to find what's you, and that's a huge key to your success, I feel like. So get it done. Make sure it's authentically you. And then have fun. Have some fun with it, and not just because I'm a surfer hippie here and I want you to enjoy your day and have fun. If you're having fun with what you're doing, it's going to transcend to your audience in a huge way. Like, whether that's talking with someone at a conference or sending an email to someone or doing a video, if you're having fun, they're going to pick up on it. And that's going to be very, very attractive to them. So anyways, sorry. That's my soapbox.
What can we expect in the future from Retireholics?
Well, also, I think formats need to evolve. I don't think you can do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Your audience is going to get bored. And we've come to that point with Retireholics where in 2018, you're going to see that our shows have morphed to having a guest on the show. And that's been a really fun dynamic for us. So now we bring an industry professional, put them on the couch with us. They get to have a lot of fun. They're excited. We get to talk to them about what they do and deliver content to our audience. And again, it's not just an interview format. A lot of times we want them to be the 5th Retireholic. So we may take general subject matter that's not in their area of expertise and allow them to join in. So you're going to see a lot of that in 2018. And then, as I mentioned, the live conferences. So look for us out at these different national conferences because we'll be there to perform and do those types of things. So.
When you look back, 3 years, big body of work. What does it feel like to have kind of created this body of work?
Well, first of all, I'm going to laugh in hysterics if you call what we do a body of work. That sounds like someone getting an Academy Award or something, not some show that we're drinking beer, talking 401k. But all right, I'll give you that. Body of work. I don't know. I am proud of what we've done. I am more proud of what I think we can do going forward. And I'm sorry, don't everyone scowl at me. I'm most proud of just the fun that everyone's having doing it. The guys are enjoying themselves. Okay, let's look at this from a serious matter. I'm an employer, and it's very important to me that I keep my sales team. I mean, you know how hard that is to lose a sales guy in a territory and start over? So I need to make sure that they're happy and that they're content and that they enjoy their occupation. And this is a great piece to that puzzle for me, that they get to do something that's fun and their family talks about and they get up for and people recognize them for it, you know? So it works not only from a just have fun and enjoy your life standpoint, but it also works from a run a successful business.
I got to imagine they're very engaged, right? I mean,
yeah.
And which is what, big corporations would die to have kind of high employee engagement like that.
Yeah, it works. It's a good medium for that.
So I want to jump into kind of some concluding thoughts and just maybe some, kind of rapid fire questions, although you can answer as long as you'd like, of course. What does it feel like when you mentioned, when you got one wrong? You got a video wrong. What does it feel like when you get that right?
It's a lot easier to know when you get it wrong. When you get it wrong, you know that you got it wrong. When you get it right, there are moments where the banter between one of the cast members and myself, and it comes off perfectly, or the audience laughs, and starts because we hit a joke on time. And it's a 401k joke, mind you. Those aren't easy to come by.
Right. My staff is sick of hearing my economist jokes.
Yeah, right. So those moments feel very, very good. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a lot easier to point out the ones that don't work well.
If you were to summarize our entire conversation today in 2 sentences or less, what would you say?
I'm going to steal from someone else because I've been thinking about this a lot. Sherry Fitz of Shoe Fits Marketing, and she focuses in this financial services
We've had her on the show, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Fantastic.
She says, again, this is hers, big target, big money. And what that means is, and I've thought a lot about this, big target means when you put yourself out there, when you write that blog post, you make that video content, and how nervous you might be that people are going to judge you or have comments or think positively or negatively about what you do. And so it's really hard to put yourself out there like that. But she says if you're that big target, you're going to have big money. And what that to me means you're going to have big success. And I think that's the big takeaway for what we've talked about today is I have clearly put myself out there in a big way, right? And risked, people laughing at me, people making fun of me, people, not liking what I do. But if you have the courage to do that, the rewards are huge, like in a multitude of ways.
And so if you were going to write a warning label for your, advice in our discussion today, what would that warning label say?
I'm such the optimist. How can I give you such a negative thing? No, here I go. Warning label. I've seen some train wrecks of content. I've seen some videos that people have tried to do, both from big vendors and small vendors, that make me go, oh, that probably shouldn't have been done. So as much as I'm like, dive in and do it, go for it, be yourself, you also have to be careful because you put something out that's really, really bad, and that can send you in the wrong direction. And I've seen a lot of those out there. So yeah, that would be my buyer beware, or my label is just be careful that you do something that's decent.
Yeah, I've just noticed that when the content's not genuine.
There you go. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, and my brother has continued to beat me down with that concept, which is when you're thinking about social media, whether it's video or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, always focus on, are you providing some value? If it's empty of value, people are going to get bored of it real quick and they're not going to want to engage with it. But you always got to ask yourself, is this something that my audience would want? Is this something my audience could use? Will they, that's key. If you can check those boxes, you're on a pretty good course.
What is the best way for our audience to follow your team's work and the Retireholics going forward?
It's pretty easy. Yeah, we're all out there, so it's not hard to find us. I think what I would ask you to do is go to retireholics.com and sign up, with your email. That way I can let you know when new episodes are coming out. And that's all we do. We're not selling you anything. We're just letting you know when new episodes come out. But you can also follow us on Twitter and follow us on Instagram.
And what's the Twitter handle?
At Retireholics. Yeah, it's easy to find. We're on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn. If you Google the words JD Carlson 401k, not only will you, if you click on the images, find a whole bunch of junk, but if you click on the actual info, you'll find all kinds of things on me. I'm not hard to find.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining the show today, JD, and for hosting me here at your beautiful house.
Yeah, thanks for coming to San Diego. It's good to have you.
Awesome.
All right, thanks.